Okay, welcome to my YouTube video. It's my first one ever, probably my last. Let's see how this goes. For this video, I'm going to talk about some moving companies in Canada who specifically go after long distance moves. They like the cross country ones. So last summer, so August 2021, my wife and I moved from Alberta to Nova Scotia, and the move didn't go very well. It went poorly, in fact. We used Atlanntis Van Lines, and in the end, we ended up paying for more weight than we actually moved. We had missing items. Out of 148 items, we were missing 3, and they were the most expensive 3 out of the group. We had a pile of damage, like extensive damage, and I'm quite cognizant when you're moving, I'm expecting wear and tear. It's unreasonable not to expect wear and tear, but this is well beyond that. And then after we had our goods and went through it and went through their claims process, they offered us $40 and proceeded to gaslight us. And from what I've been reading and chatting to other people, it's not just me. This is a very common occurrence amongst these companies. So if you've moved with them, I'm going to give you some information that you may or may not know. And if you're planning a move, you're going to want to see this too to make sure you don't get yourself in the same trouble that we did. So with that, here's the companies. I'm going to walk you through them all. So here, just go from left to right. The mothership is Troy Transportation. And then there's Trillium Moving and Storage, Kingsway Van Lines, Armour Van Lines, and off the top, I would suggest these 4 I don't think are actively moving, but I could be wrong, but I haven't seen anything to specify that lately. And then we've got Atlantic Van Lines and Canadian Moving Systems. Now, these 6 are related because the director of these companies is a couple. Each one either has Elena Balduck, who is the director of Troy Transportation, the one that's the mothership, or her husband, Murat Balduck. It's one of those 2 for all 6 of these. I've got all the paperwork. I've read them all. And then these 4, these are newer companies. So Alliance Van Lines, Canadian National Van Lines, Atlanntis Van Lines, our company, and Canada's leading van lines. Now, Elena and Murat aren't directors of them. However, there's very close ties between the directors and Elena and Murat. I'm going to refer to them as the friends and family companies on here. I'm not going to give their names. I don't know for sure how much they know of what's going on. There's no way for me to know. So I'm going to leave them out. But I do have all the information. So that'll come out one of these days. See what happens. So how did I figure this out? Because it's not obvious. You can't just go to one webpage and figure this out. I have been looking into this ever since our move. So it's probably been 6 months. And I would say at least 3 months of that, this was a full-time operation for me trying to figure this out. So what happened was with our missing items, for me it was a computer. I had a ultra-wide monitor, the computer, and the motherboard box with all the goods in it. It was very obvious what they were. You couldn't miss it. You knew what they were to see them. And those are the 3 that went missing. And when we went through the claims process, it just felt too common to me. I really didn't feel like this was something out of the norm to them. Like it was just a gut feeling. There was no surprises to them. It was just, okay, fill in the form and, we'll carry on from there. And we kept asking questions. Has anybody looked in the warehouse? Have you found it? What's happening? And, we get a little stock answer of, well, we'll check, and then we'd never hear back. So we'd ask again. We get an email back saying we're going to check. Never hear back. It was just radio silence. And it wasn't sitting well with me. Something did not feel right. It took me a while to figure it out. So after we had filled in the claims form and sent it in, it was gnawing at me. I knew something was wrong. I just didn't know what that something was. So I looked at the Excel claims form a little bit closer, and I found something very interesting, and I'm going to show you what that is. Okay, so in Excel, if you just go File and then Info, right here, this is a screenshot of what's going to come up after you press File, you'll get a screen where it's going to have who the author of the document is and who modified that document last. So as long as you haven't typed anything in this sheet that you got from them or saved it, you're going to see the names of the specific people from the company who worked on it last. So what I have here is the author and last modified by for the Atlanntis Van Lines claim form that they sent us. So this was interesting. The author says Troy Transport Sophia, and the last modified by is Twyla Sick Loss. At the time, I had no idea who they were. I looked them up. I couldn't really find anything. I didn't know who. They were, for far as I could tell, nothing to do with Atlanntis Van Lines. I couldn't find their name on the website or Better Business Bureau or anything like that. Didn't know who they were. And then I realized when we were going through the sales process, we got some more Excel sheets from other companies when we were chatting to numerous ones to find out, what the final cost would be. So now, between those, and I spoke to other people when I was researching all of this, I got my hands on quite a few Excel sheets. So let me show you some more of these. Okay, so now what I have here is just a summary of that same information spot on Excel, just of different sheets from different companies. So on the left-hand side here, I've got Atlanntis. So the one here is the one that I showed you on the previous screen. Below that is the one that I found on the information for the inventory sheet that they sent us when we were going through the quotes. So again, I've got Troy Transportation Arter. I don't know who Arter is, but the Troy Transportation thing sticks out to me. And then we have Troy Transport Sophia again. So we've seen her twice already. Now on Canada's leading van lines, Troy Transportation Arter, Troy Transport Sophia. It's the same as the Atlanntis one. Canadian National Van Lines, Troy Transport Arter, Troy Transportation Cindy Lou. No idea who that is. Alliance Van Lines. The author doesn't come through. I don't know why. But I've got last modified by Troy Transportation Elena. So if you remember, Elena was the sole director of Troy Transportation. Not sure what's going on there. But something else that sticks out to me is the created date for these three companies is exactly the same. It's March 22nd, 2017, 11:25 a.m. So it looks to me like Troy Transportation Arter created it, and then I'm assuming shortly thereafter they modified them for the three different companies. So they're similar, but they play with the fonts and colors and a couple little tweaks here and there, but they're almost exactly the same. And it makes sense because they're created by the same person for all three companies. So let's look at these other ones. Atlantic Office, I don't know what that is. Last modified, again, Troy Transportation Naomi. And then Canadian Moving Systems, both Troy Transportation Arter. So you can see the theme here as clearly as I can. Why are they all done by people from Troy Transportation? And why are the users still Troy Transportation? Why doesn't the author of Alliance Van Lines say Alliance Van Lines whoever? It makes no sense to me. Now, when I try to find Arter, Sophia, Cindy Lou, Naomi, any of these names related to the company that they've done work on this paperwork for, I can't find them. I find nothing that ties Arter or Cindy Lou to Canadian National Van Lines. I can't find any of that type of info. It's interesting, isn't it? It's hard to understand what's going on here. So at this point, who is Troy Transportation? I didn't have a clue who or what they were at the time. So thank you to CBC Marketplace, because in 2017, January the 13th, they did a special called Moving Company Nightmares. And I'm going to link that below so you can watch it. If you haven't seen it, you need to watch it. It's very well done and very telling. That video is a spotlight on Elena and Murat Baldock. It's funny how we see Troy Transportation Elena right now on Alliance, Troy Transportation everything, when they're the highlight of a video titled Moving Company Nightmares. Not a good feeling, is it? Not a good feeling at all. So let's talk about this. I have found what information I can on the internet. I'm going to share that with you to show you who they are. Okay, so the Arter name with Troy Transportation, when I put into a Google search, this one was a Yahoo search. First thing that comes up is Arter Yakubov, sales rep with Troy Transportation. So it sure looks like a typo to me. I've clicked the link. I don't see the LinkedIn page. I don't know if it's taken down. I can't explain it, but it's not there. But this does come up in the search engines. This is right from yahoo.com when I do the search. So looks like he worked there. I don't think he's there anymore. I don't see the name recently. And my understanding is Arthur is now the director of some companies, not necessarily affiliated with this specific group anymore, but with a different group of guys. So adds up. This guy worked for Troy, and he built a lot of these documents and modified them. I think it's him. Not sure. Could be wrong. If anybody knows, put in the comments below, because I'm trying to figure out who they all are. Next one. So now, when I look up Twyla Sick Loss Troy Transportation, she's got a LinkedIn profile, and this one is up. It may not be for long, but it was up at the time of this. General Operations Manager at Troy Moving and Storage Services, Inc. That's Troy Transportation, just another way to say the name. So she was there. It says that she still's there. I don't see anything that says that she works at Atlanntis now. So I'm not sure what the deal is, but, according to this, she was with Troy. And the way it reads, she still is. So I don't know. I don't know why there's no end date on it, but she was there. So now we've confirmed 2 of them were with Troy. Let's go on to the next one. So now let's see if we can figure out who Troy Transportation Sophia is. When you look it up, you can find Sophia spelt 2 different ways. But I thought this was the best piece of information I could find on it to say who she was. I reached out to some people that moved with Troy a long time ago. And a family that I spoke to gave me some emails, and these were the signatures on the email. So we've got Sophia Cohen is the claims manager of Troy Transportation on the left, and then Sophia Cohen is the operations manager of Troy Transportation on the right. So this person, Sophia, had sent emails to this family with different titles, both being a manager, but once a claims manager and the next time an operations manager. So whoever Sophia is, she is part of Troy Transportation. And although her name comes up a lot, again, I can't find any Sophia related to the other companies. So, again, unclear on what's going on here. But the trend of Troy Transportation people working for these other companies, it keeps coming up. So let's look at another one. So Naomi was tricky to find until I looked on Canly. And Canly's a great website. You can do different types of searches to see what kind of legal documents can be out there that people have been involved in. Great site. I like it. Helped me out quite a bit. Good job, guys. So when I put in Naomi Troy Transportation on this, I got a hit. I got Naomi Dell, sales representative at Troy Transportation. She was in court representing Troy in a case back in 2015. So she was definitely there, whoever Naomi Dell is. Again, I can't find the name on anything else, but I found this. So again, another title of Troy Transportation. It just keeps coming up. And the next one. So the last name that I was able to find was Elena for Troy Transportation. We knew that because I already told you that she was the director of it, but this just shows it a little bit more. On the Canly site, in the same court case that Naomi was in, Elena was there with Naomi as well. So she comes up as the president of Troy Transportation when you look at this little write-up. So lots of Troy Transportation people involved in the paperwork for all of these companies. And only Troy Transportation. I can't find anything about the companies themselves, like Atlanntis. There's no Alliance, somebody, or Canadian Moving System, somebody's name. It always comes back to Troy every time. I feel like they just didn't think to check these on Excel. They've used the same suite of Office, and nobody knew that that was a thing that could get looked up. So they left a gap. They left me something to find. This helped me figure out everything. So with that, let's talk about how they find their work, because the way I'm looking at it, it's a very specific way that they do it, and it's the way that it happened to us, the way that we found them. So I'm going to walk you through that. Okay, when we were moving, we just jumped on the internet, moved Calgary to Halifax, and see what comes up. What I have here is the search engine from Yahoo, and the very first thing that comes up is a website that's named allcanadamovers.com, and that's the site that we used. So what that is it's a leads website. This site says on it that they're going to match up reputable movers, and movers are going to compete for your business, and they're all professional and they're great, and it's going to be a smooth move and all that type of wording. And you simply put in some information, your name, where you're going to and from, what you're in, if it's a two-bedroom house, two-bedroom apartment, whatever. It takes like 4 or 5 minutes to fill. It's very simple. And then the theory is you start getting bids from multiple companies. Then you can look at the bids and see what price you think makes sense, and you're off and running and get you started. All of a sudden you got all these people to talk to. Sounds good in theory, makes a lot of sense to me. But now let me walk you through the information that we got. So from that website, we ended up getting 9 quotes. And remember, at the time, I didn't know that anybody was related. I didn't know what was going on. So it's interesting that 5 of those 9 came from the 5 that we've seen that the paperwork is done by people from Troy Transportation. So there's some sort of tie there. So Canadian Moving Systems, Canadian National Van Lines, Alliance, Atlanntis, Canada's leading van lines all sent us quotes. And all the paperwork's being, as far as I can tell, done by the same people when it comes to their actual moving documents. You can't tell by the sales quotes. It's different names. And again, names that I can't find anywhere with the exception of their websites. I don't know who they are. Can't find them. And even more interesting is their quotes were within 2 to 3% of each other. They're very close. So that's 5 out of 9. That's over half the bids that we got from this group. Then we had 4 other ones. And I'm not going to get into who those companies are, but separate competitors, as far as I can tell, not related. But what was interesting for me was the 5 that we got that I have highlighted here were so close in price, and they were lower than these ones. So when we looked at this, we thought, there's 5 quotes. They're all real close. This is an industry standard for a move. So let's start talking to these guys. That's how we got all the Excel sheets, and that's kind of how we fell down this hole of using these guys. It's interesting, isn't it? I'm not really sure what to read into this, but it doesn't feel right. It's sketchy, isn't it? But anyways, I'm going to show you another one now. I found somebody else who went through something very similar, and let's take a look at what happened to them. So in this case, this family, again, used a leads website to get quotes, and we're going to run through who sent quotes into them. So they got them from 6 companies that we've seen before. Shares that Troy Transportation author and modified by. So 6 out of 10, that's 60%. And then the other 3 are Interprovincial Movers, Relocation Canada, and Easy Way to Move. And I think they're related, and I'm going to show you why I think they are here shortly. And then the 10th one is just another competitor who I'm not going to name or go through because I can't tell if they're related to this or not, so they'll stay out of it. So at this point, it seems to me that there's some tie between these first 6. Now let's walk through these 3 and let me show you a quick way to figure out who's tied in with who. Okay, so now I'll go through those other 3 companies. Here's Interprovincial Moving. So when you look them up, you get this phone number. This is this 1-800-908-8342. When you take that phone number and look it up, it starts connecting with Vega Line Moving and Storage Services. I didn't know who they were at the time. I have a better feeling now. Even more to the point, that phone number, 800-908-8342, the 8342 spells Vega. So that I found that in their advertising. So Interprovincial and Vega share a phone number. Not 100% sure what that means, but it's happening. They share a number. So let's look at Relocation Canada. On the Better Business Bureau site, their address shows up as unit number 8, 7115 48th Street, Southeast Calgary. It's a warehouse down the southeast by Foothills. That address is also being used by Vega Line Enterprises, again, like we saw on Interprovincial Moving, on their corporate profile. So when they actually started that company, that's the address they used for it. It's the exact same one. So there's something going on there, right? Pretty close. And then the third one, easy way to move. When you search them and get the phone number, and then Google that phone number, comes up as a phone number for Vega Line Enterprises again. So suddenly these three companies all seem to be somehow tied with Vega Line Enterprises. It's interesting, isn't it? So now to the next step. Okay. So now that we have a better feel for the three companies in the middle here, this gets very suspicious. I've got 6 companies here that seem very closely tied based on the paperwork we've seen in the Excel, all related to Troy Transportation somehow or other. We've got these 3 companies related with Vega Line Enterprises, and then we've got a spare. So let's see if we can figure this out. Let's look at some more data here. Now, the people that helped me out with this information ended up choosing Canadian National Van Lines. And when it was time for their stuff to get picked up, Canadian National Van Lines sent them an email with a phone number for dispatch. And that's the number up here, 1-800-908-8342. Guess whose phone number that is? That number goes right to Vega Line Moving and Storage Services. Ouch. So we've got 6 related to Troy Transportation, 3 related to Vega, a spare company. And then when these folks use one of these companies that seems to be related to Troy Transportation, they actually get moved by Vega. Ouch. That's like 9 out of 10 companies. As far as I can tell from the outside looking in, pick any one of those 9 companies and you're probably getting moved by Vega. Not cool. So all of this can be a bit overwhelming. And it gets to the point where it's hard to know who actually has trucks. Like who's physically doing the moves. So we've seen that there was a dispatch number for them, for Vega Line Enterprises, sorry. Now this is a screenshot just off Google Maps on the street view. You can find it. Here's an actual Vega Line truck at one of the yards that's listed in a few different spots for addresses for companies. But I know it's a bit small, but this says Vega Line Enterprises on it. You can find it if you look it up. No problems there. So now we know they do have trucks. When dispatch got called, it was most likely Vega Line trucks that moved them. Does it make sense that Vega Line's doing all these moves all the time? I don't know. I have no idea how big they are, how many trucks they have. Don't know. Impossible for me to tell. But I did find some other interesting information. So let's look at this. When I was scouring reviews, just looking for photos, I'm just looking for any information leading to who actually conducted the move, I did notice a couple of things that stuck out to me. So on the top, here's one for Atlanntis Van Lines. And the person that did this review took a photo of the truck. And it comes up Global Transport, Inc. Here's another one for Atlantic. Same thing, Global Transport, Inc. And with the reviews, I'm really on the fence with those because it's too easy to make fake ones, like good or bad. You know, their competition can try to make them look bad or they can make themselves look good. It's just too easy to do a review. But once you start seeing photos like this, to me, they have a little bit more stock in them. So here's Atlantic and Alliance using Global. Who's Global? Not much out there on them. You know, I couldn't find a website. I couldn't find them on the Better Business Bureau. Couldn't find anything. You know, I found one link when I searched them up. One little piece of information. That was it. So let's take a look at who they are. So I pulled the corporate profile for Global Transport, Inc. One director. That director's name? Elena Baldock. So we've found pictures on the internet of Elena's trucks moving people for Alliance and Atlantis And we know that she's tied in with those two companies. And just to show you, here's the one for Troy Transportation that shows she's the sole director of that company as well. It's very interesting, isn't it? And one more little soundbite of information. Let's look at the address. The address of Global Transport, 1160 Birchmont Road, Unit 4, Scarborough. The address of Troy Transportation, 1160 Birchmont Road, Unit 4A, Scarborough. Right beside each other, I guess. Not sure what to read into that. Again, it all seems so closely tied. It's hard to know what's going on here. But what we do know is Global has trucks. Troy used to have trucks. I don't know if they do anymore or not. I can't find anything that supports the fact that they do. But now Global does. The address is pretty close. Something going on. Anyways, on to the next part. So now we've seen that there's some close ties. But what does that mean? So here's a screenshot from a website that starts talking about cartels, bid rigging, price fixing, that type of thing. So it's buyandsell.gc.ca. It's a Government of Canada website. And they kind of, high level go over what's legal and what's not and what this looks like. So as we just saw, from Leeds websites, we're getting quotes from companies that seem very similar. Very, very similar. They're connected somehow. So can they do that? Not sure. I've highlighted some stuff here, and if you Google it, you can find this site and read it to your heart's content. It's interesting. I find it interesting. But here's a blow up of some of these comments on the left. So a cartel. A cartel is formed when businesses agree to act together instead of competing with each other, all the while maintaining the illusion of competition. A cartel is a group of independent businesses whose concerted goal is to lessen or prevent competition. Okay? So the fact that we're getting quotes from numerous companies that seem related, are they independent? I don't know. Quotes from 5 or 6 companies that seem related. And then the trucks that are moving them, they're related somehow to those companies. And then another group of companies is somehow related to the first group of companies. Gets messy fast. Is it independent? It doesn't feel like it is to me, but I've been wrong before. Let's carry on here. Bid rigging. Bid rigging occurs when 2 or more persons agree that, in response to a call for bids or tenders, one or more of them will not submit a bid, withdraw a bid, submit a bid arrived at by agreement. Okay. The offense of bid rigging is committed only if the person requesting the bids or tenders is not informed beforehand about the agreement made between the parties. I can tell you right now, when we got our bids, nobody told us anything. I had absolutely no idea that the paperwork would all be coming from Troy Transportation people, that they knew each other, that somehow they were tied together. I didn't know any of that. So is it bid rigging? I don't know for sure. I know that the information that's out there leads me to believe it may be, but I can't know for sure. But there's something going on here. And it's not legal. If this happened to you and you want to report it, go ahead, right? I'm sure people would be interested to see this at the Federal Contracting Fraud Tip Line. Sorry, it's a mouthful for me. I messed that up. Anyways, take a look at the paperwork. See who sent you bids. See what you have. See if you think this is part of it. Look into it because there's something going on there. Okay. Now I'm going to walk through information from the Better Business Bureau. So this chart is just a summary, just so you don't have to go through all the pages. What I have on the left side are the 6 companies that we saw earlier have the Troy Transportation Excel documents with the names. The incorporation dates, because I pulled all their corporate profiles, so these are right off of those. And then the dates that the companies have listed on the Better Business Bureau Better Business Bureau site as their start date. And then the time difference between those dates, if there is one. So Atlanntis Van Lines, back in 2012, the incorporation date and what they told the Better Business Bureau as their start date was matches. So there's no time difference. Makes sense, right? To me, it does anyway. Then Canadian Moving Systems, incorporated in 2013, but on the Better Business Bureau, they said their start date's 2007. There's a discrepancy of 5 years. I don't know what that means. Does that mean that they were saying they operated for 5 years before they decided to join the Better Business Bureau and get their site on there? I don't know. It doesn't make sense to me. Let's just go right down to Canada's leading van lines. Incorporation date, 2018. Better Business date, 2013. Sorry, 2009. Again, why? It's a difference of 9 years. Why not just put the incorporation date on there? I realized something when I read a complaint on one from Atlanntis, and tells a story. Let's take a quick look at Atlanntis here. Incorporated 2017, Better Business Bureau start date 2006. Now let's look at this review. Okay, now here's a complaint done in 2018 on the Better Business Bureau site. It was responded to by the company, and the company was Atlanntis. So what's interesting is that it says they moved in August of 2018, and after researching moving companies with multiple companies, we selected Atlanntis, being assured of their A+ Better Business Bureau rating. So now, if Atlanntis was actually incorporated in 2017, these people moved in 2018. At most, they've been incorporated for a year. But this guy thinks that they have an A+ rating, and they did. It would have said that on the site, but how did they get an A+ rating if they've only been incorporated for a year? This is where it starts getting complex. Were they actually started in 2006 doing moves? I find nothing. They've got Facebook and Twitter and all sorts of stuff, moving reviews. I find nothing that shows they existed prior to their incorporation date. So again, I don't know what that means. I can't explain it. I could just show you the facts. And another thing, if the incorporation date's 17, and this is a year later when they moved, it's absolutely impossible to have an A+ on the Better Business Bureau within 1 year. You cannot do it. It's not the way the system's set up. They're not just going to give everybody a company that just fires up an A+ rating. You've got to put in, I think it's either 3 or 4 years in order to get enough points to have an A+. What I do know is this company was less than a year old, and the people that use them thought they were an A+ company with the Better Business Bureau. But were they? Did they really follow it? Again, I don't know. I can't explain it. All I can do is show you the facts. I'll let you decide on that one. Okay, this will be the last thing I take off the Better Business Bureau. What I've done here is just summarize the complaints to these individual companies. And the reason I'm using the complaints is because the companies respond to those, which tells me that that move actually happened. So it's not fake like some of the reviews can be. So what this is Atlanntis Van Lines in 3 years has 33 complaints. In 12 months in the last year, they had 13. Okay. So it's the same thing as we go along here. Same information pulled for all the companies. So I'm just going to focus on the last year. So Alliance had 13 in the last year. Canadian Moving Systems had 13. Atlanntis had 10. Atlantic had 16. Canadian National Van Lines got 9. And Canada's leading van lines has 4. So when you look at them as individual companies, real easy math, this works out to roughly 1 complaint per month. Seems fine to me. That doesn't seem terrible. It doesn't make me scared to look at a company when I see that. It's not bad. But then, when you combine those numbers, it works out to 65 complaints in 1 year. So, if there's credence that these companies are joined at the hip, 65 complaints in 1 year is a completely different story because that's 1 complaint a week versus 1 per month. That changes everything. Are they related? I don't know. I just know that if this was operating as one company instead of multiple, it would change the viewpoint of clients like myself prior to using them. So again, it's more data for you to think about. I'll leave that one with you. We'll carry on here. Okay. What I'm going to show you here now is from the claimed response. What we have on the left-hand side is an email that we got from Amelia Steinberg, who's the senior operations manager. And she's attached the letter that says, we're going to give you $40 in good faith due to your problems, and that's the end of it. Thank you for your business. So the email is sent by Amelia Steinberg. The PDF letter that we have is signed by Amelia Steinberg. However, when you go into that PDF and do the same thing that we did on Excel, just look up who the author of it is. The author is Troy Transport Sophia. Even more interesting, in real time, the created date's December the 10th. December 10th is exactly when this happened. So why is it that Troy Transport Sophia has created this document, signed it as Amelia Steinberg, and then sent it as Amelia Steinberg? And I'm only showing the one from Atlanntis because if I put up the dates and times from other letters, they'll know who's helped me, and that's none of their business. I'm not going to tell them. But it's the same thing. The letters are authored by Troy Transport Sophia or Troy Transport Sasha, but the letter itself is signed by the operations manager of the specific company, whether it's Alliance, Canadian Moving Systems, Atlantic, Canada's Leading Van Lines, whatever. That specific person's name will be on it, but the author never matches. It's always one of these Troy Transport ones. Exact same story as the Excel documents. Except now, people are sending things that it just doesn't add up. Even when I think about it, it blows my mind. It's like, is this really happening? So, it is. That's a fact. So, are all these companies related? I think there's a lot of data here to suggest something's going on. I couldn't tell you exactly what that something is, but some crazy stuff. So the question is, why would they go through all this effort? If they know how to move, if they know what they're doing, why do all of this? I don't understand it. Why? If this is what it looks like, where there's 6 companies being run by the same people, why do you have all these shell organizations? Is it to hide numbers? I don't know. I'm not sure what's happening. What I do know is the regulations are very thin. And I'll say this, when you look at it as a one-person move, like in our case of a move, what they've done actually meets regulations. Everything's legit. For my most expensive item to go missing, for all the damage, for all the grief, for what they actually offered me in compensation, it meets regulations. They're practically following the law. Forgetting the fact that all these things are related to Troy Transport, Sophia and Arthur and Twyla and Naomi and all this other stuff. Without knowing that, it looks like they're following the law. So let's take a look at these regulations. Now, in your claims letter, or even the responses from any of these companies on the Better Business Bureau to an actual complaint, they like to refer to the Ontario Regulations Code here. This is this carriage of goods, 643/05. They always say this is their Bible, what they have to follow, what they have to do. Comes up all the time. And when you see the 60 cents per pound thing that they talk about, it's in here. They're following it. They're not doing anything sideways as far as that goes. What's interesting about these regulations, though, is what there is. There's just not a lot to it. This is the front page of it. This is right from it. It talks about the liability insurance for carriers. They're doing that. And now here's the rest of the regulations. 4 pages. So this is a busy industry. A lot of people moving. Lots of problems with this industry. In my opinion, this is probably why. When all of your goods get shipped by a company, the regulations are 4 pages long. That's it. 4. The paperwork that moving company gave you to sign and deal with, I think it's actually longer than this. The documents that they have to live by and the regulations they have to follow. And they're following them. They're not following these. In fact, they use them all the time. As soon as there's a claim, they say, well, this is what we follow and this is what it says. And they're right. So there's a gap here. Like when people are following these regulations and getting away with what they're getting away with, something's not right. It doesn't add up. But again, if you don't know that those companies are tied together, like we talked about, you're done. Somebody reads these, somebody reads their paperwork, you don't have a chance. But with the other information, it gives you a whole different point of view on this. It's scary. And one thing I will say, if you've moved with them, if you don't mind, help us out. Talk to your MP. Tell them what happened on the move. Show them this video, whatever it takes. But the only way to get change with the government is to get lots of people to speak up. So if you agree with what I'm saying and can tell there's something wrong, tell your MP, and hopefully we can do something one day to make this better. Well, I think that was a lot of information I just threw at you. To summarize this, I can't sit here and say I've actually physically seen these people working together. I know for sure. I'm no lawyer. I'm no PI. I don't know what it takes to actually prove there's something strange going on here. I just know what the data looks like to me. And I wanted to share that with everybody else out there. So if you move with these companies and you're talking to a lawyer or the police, make sure you tell them the whole story, because it's very difficult for them to know what to do without the entire thing. And I get that. It's tricky. There's a lot of moving parts here. But this tells a story, in my opinion. And if you're planning a move, careful out there. Those leads websites, I don't know which ones are legit and which ones aren't. So try not to get yourself in a pickle there. That I don't understand why these companies that seem to be tied together are using them. It's obviously works for them, but check the address, make sure it's legit. Check the phone number, make sure it doesn't tie to multiple other companies. Just do a little bit of homework. If there's a name on there, look that person up, see if they have any presence other than just that company. See if they're real, see if they're legit. They're good. I'm going to give it to them. There's companies out there that have piles and piles and piles of reviews that make them look like an A-plus company, and then when you start digging into it, they are the furthest thing from an A-plus good company. So what do you trust now? I don't know. Personally, we're moving again. We're going to go back to Alberta. Things happen. I went to the Canadian Association of Movers, did a search, and I hit up 3 or 4 of those companies. At least I know they've been vetted. Saves me the time and trouble of trying to do it, right? So if you're going to move, think about doing that. It's the safer play at this point until we can get these regulations sorted out and get some control over this stuff. So with that, if you've looked at your paperwork and found anything else that I didn't catch, throw it in the comments for me. The more the merrier. We're trying to figure this whole thing out so we can decide how to approach it all. But appreciate your time. Take her easy.